All right. So, a couple of things today. Before we begin class, I'm going to give you back your rubrics, which I graded. Okay? If you have any questions, I want you to ask me after class. Okay? If you have any concerns, feel free. Please come to me. Hey, Mr. Polk said I didn't have a good conclusion. I thought I had a well-developed conclusion. This is what I did. Please do that. If you feel like, and I'll be more, oh yeah, I remember now. I've got so many things in my brain, I can't fit them all in there. And so you can fight for points if you want. It's perfectly fine. These are very subjective, and I got to remember everything. And grading, you see, I'm multitasking up here, and I'm trying to go off of memory on these kinds of things. Again, no one likes to be told that their baby's not the cutest baby in the world. Okay, the speeches are your babies, and it's subjective. I might not think your baby is as cute as you think it is. You get a different professor, they may have been more critical. They may have been more lenient. All right, everybody did well because they completed their speeches, they informed their audiences, they achieved that goal. And so what I like to do is stretch you and really push you to your limits. I will say this, if you just did meets the time requirement, there was a lot left more you could have put on the table to inform us. Does that make sense? Everybody met the time requirement. No one did poorly. But I want you to think more or less, we focused on introductions and conclusions, and I need you to be extremely purposeful with your purpose statement. Your audience needs to know with extreme clarity what you're trying to get them to do or see or understand up front. That has to be in your introduction. Also need attention getter. Most people, when they get around that 3.5 minute mark and they don't get into 4 minutes, 5 minutes, they need to build in more substance and more creativity because you have the time. Does that make sense? This comes with experience. This comes with having the feel of what a 3.5 minute speech is supposed to be 5 minutes feels like. Now, just because you made 5 minutes doesn't mean you had a good conclusion. Doesn't mean you had a good introduction. But you may have had really good substance, but didn't really set it up well or didn't conclude it well. So think on those things because that's what the lecture's emphasized. And today, after I give you these, we're going to go into delivery styles and presentations and set you up for success in regards to your next speech in a couple of weeks, which is going to be another informative speech. Please don't make it persuasive. You can have persuasive elements in it, but do not be overtly persuasive. And when thinking about your topics, and get with me about choosing your topics and or anything like that. All right, we can see the screen here. So I'm now on the D2L website, our D2L news page. Remember, weekly we update this, give your directions. I'm going to post the video here of this lecture, anything that goes on there. And this focuses on Chapter 11 and Chapter 9. I also mentioned there that the Speech 3 requirements now available in the content section D2L. I'm going to try and go through this fast. I know I'm speaking fast. So please stop me if you want to go back over here on the left-hand side or on the speech 1, 2, and 3 requirements. I made this one visual today. And so you'll see there's a very good close similarity between the other one. Notice there are 7 requirements instead of 6. This is the online, which if you're taking my online class, you're already online, but now I'm requiring you to have a PowerPoint presentation. And whether in my online class or this class, you're going to be scheduled to do a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom presentation. So for my in class, you will not be showing in person. You can be on campus if you want, and you can use my computer with me that day if you want, because I'm going to be watching everybody's speeches. But you'll need to find a computer if you're going on campus, or you need to be at home and make sure your internet connection is ready to go. We're going to be doing this as if you're going to do a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams presentation with a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint's required as well. This is real world stuff, you guys. Last weekend I did 2. This weekend I'm doing another one for the Navy, and I do these quite often, and I've done hundreds of them. And there are things that are very different than an in-person presentation in regards to delivering to an audience. When you do a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams, or there's Adobe's got a version 2 that I've done with the Marines as well. They all have their quirkiness. They all can only hold so many people without there being any lag and issues and things like that. And you remember last week in setting up a video or PowerPoint, hey, it takes a little more time. If you read last week and you did the quiz last week, it talks about online presentations have a lot more things to juggle and set up, and everything just keeps pushing time out and makes everything longer. So that speech day is going to be longer. What we may end up doing is we may end up scheduling different time frame so we won't be here forever, especially, or letting those people go sooner if they know they've got to work. You know how when we would have speech days, they go a little longer, right? But there are other things in regards to delivery. We're going to talk about delivery today in the online world specifically that I want you to be prepared for, okay? So this is the fundamentals of speech. I wish we could just give 3 speeches and that be it, but we want to touch on the fundamentals of an online speech and persuasive as well. I know you may feel like, well, man, I got a lot more I feel like I can probably work on in regards to just giving a speech. That will come, and because we have 2 other speeches, but I want to give you and go ahead and throw you in the fire in regards to an online virtual world of delivering with an audience. If you may not be able to see my screen, but you can see in the lectures, what I try and do is how I present my background, where my positioning. I don't want to have too much something over my head where you just see my neck up, right? All those things come into play. I don't want a fan flickering in the background on the light and it looks like disco's going on. That happens. Y'all seen some people on our Zoom speeches that have done that as well. And what do we got to do? It takes preparation. And I'm going to be able to give you some, I guess you could say, pro tips because I do it professionally, and ways to make this more smooth, and what to avoid, and the problems that incur with those types of presentations. So that's the requirements. It's the same informative template. It's the same one with descriptions. And there's a link there for tip for virtual presentations. And again, reread last week's chapter on online speeches as well, and which is different than, it's going to sound very similar today with presentation aids when we talk about PowerPoints. That's not an online speech, but this tech is involved. All right, so I'll try and get those outlines graded to you quickly as well, and that way you'll have an idea, because that preparation is extremely important for your delivery. All right, and so let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up your textbook in regards to chapter 11, and then we'll split the class in half. We're going to talk about presentation aids as well, because the presentation aids affect your delivery. And I want to discuss delivery first. This is going to be in sort of like a building in segments, okay? I'm going to what's called scaffolding in regards to educating you and on building blocks. Now, I'm again pull up the textbook, chapter 11, just as a framework for us to look at. Now, what do I mean by scaffolding and building blocks in regards to these types of things? What I want you to do is for an audience, for anything that you're going to inform someone on. Remember, now I'm informing you on public speaking, right? You want to scaffold the information as if it's building blocks so that you can help them understand the basics and then build from there. Remember how when we talked about building your outline, explanation is better up front. Giving a definition, right? If they don't know the definition of what you're even talking about, they're going to be lost for a while. Application as support for a main point will be later in your speech, right? You've got everything put together. Now you're going to apply it to real life. Again, in my outline, you only choose 2. You don't need to, are you going to give us an illustration, an application, an explanation, an interrogative, or interrogation, like some type of question? I always ask questions, and it may not even be in my outline, but I'm always building in questions specifically in my outline as well. How are you going to deliver that information? And you want to deliver, we're going to talk about delivery, you want to scaffold the information. Your book doesn't emphasize that as much as I am up front, so that you have a starting point and where you want to be at the ending point. As simple as baking a cake or whatever it is, What do you need first? And what would it look like? And what's the end product? But ultimately, you have to understand, I'm informing you of the basics, and a lot of you had everybody in here had the structure of a speech, an intro, a body, and conclusion. Then what you have to do, you have to scaffold your delivery. You have to build in and put flesh on it. All right? What is it? Build more support. Expound on the illustration for that main point. But what I want you to understand is you've got to give it life as well. Just because it has bones, has an outline, has structure and substance, I have a story, you need to give it life. And your delivery will be better the more you're authentic with it, and the better you know your presentation, and you know the flow of the structure, you know the flow of your outline, you got that basic down, you know it like the back of your hand. Some of you come up here and we're just going right off your notes based off the structure, and you had a basic speech. But the more I know my speech outline, the more I know what I'm excited to get this story. I want to tell them about this next, on how I show them something that I learned that you just don't know unless you've done it before. I get excited about delivering that information, and now I've got to bring it to the audience. So I go back in my mind of when I first encountered that problem. When I tried this, guys, this is what happened to me. And now you're enlightening them. You're not just informing them, here are the basics. You're enlightening them of what they're seeing and what you're informing them of. And that gets fun as a presenter, because you're able to help them see or even avoid what you don't want them to run into. You're going to hear me say this. This is going to be on your test. You want to do the hard work for your audience, but also you want to give your audience an experience. This isn't just a one-way delivery where I'm informing you of my topic. For a moment, they should be in that world, and everything should be like you're watching a movie and or a book, and you're enraptured by what's going on. You're not thinking about anything else but what we're talking about at that moment. And it could be very, very, very simple things that you can captivate your audience with. That's why procrastination is going to be your enemy. Waiting the last minute, I've got a topic, or broad topics can be a starting point, but you need to narrow them down so that you can get to specifics. If you never get to specifics, you're just giving us generalities about a topic, which leads me to another point in delivery. As we talked about purpose, as we talked about informing your audience, that intentionality should not just be telling them about a topic. I'm going to tell you today about squirrels and giving us the facts. The problem with that is that it's too basic, and your audience are going to check out because I can look this stuff up. But intentionality with purpose of why they should listen comes with an attention getter, comes with a hook, comes with a purpose to say of why this will help them, comes with a more specific topic that applies to them. Does that make sense? See, I'm getting some feedback from you. And you can ask your audience, as we go along, give me thumbs up, sideways, sides down. Y'all give me a thumbs up. Tracking with me so far. All right. Don't just do this because I asked you to, just because you're mirroring me. All right. So let's talk about delivery for a moment. Let's see if this will slide for me. It probably won't. My clicker broke the other day. All right, so this talks about the importance of delivery and scenarios. I'm going to model this for you, not only because I want to model for you reading something off of a screen, but I think this is a really good scenario that a lot of you fell into these two categories. I think this was the one. Yes, one guy had good delivery but poor preparation. One had a lot of good preparation but poor delivery. What ends up there, right? You want to have good preparation and good delivery is the goal, but that's what happens with procrastination or overconfidence. Poor preparation, but you got a good smile. All right, you're comfortable in front of an audience, but you have poor preparation. So let's listen to this for a moment. Consider the scenario about two students and reflect upon your past speech and the previous speech or other times you spoke, had to prepare, right? Bob and Chris. Bob spends weeks doing research and crafting a beautifully designed speech that on the day he gets in front of the audience, he messes up a little because of nerves. While he may view it as a complete failure, his audience will have gotten a lot of good information and most likely written off his mistakes due to nerves, since they would be nervous in the same situation. Make sense? May have felt that way. Let me tell you this, okay? In my life, I told you how many times I've spoken in front of audiences. Imagine for over 20 years. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesdays, right? Teaching in high school students, teaching college, doing Navy things. It's many variety of things. Some things I felt like come natural to me in regards to the topic. Oh, I know this information. And life happens. And then I know it so well, so maybe I don't have to prepare as much because I know this topic. I've even spoken on it before. Okay? Nerves can kick in out of the blue because it's a different audience. Higher ranking officers in front of you now as opposed to just, some general audience. I didn't realize these people were going to be there. Or it could be, procrastination. I knew I don't know as much about this, but the last 2 days before, I really crunched it in and I had all this information that I put in, but it wouldn't. Remember how I told you to use that term, letting the topic marinate with you and it flow with you for a long time? That's why you want to get your topic early, let it marinate. You want to work on your outline early. Waiting till the last minute will not allow your topic, your points, the creativity to flow as easy. And if you got a lot of experience, you can follow on that, but it's harder to have a better delivery, especially when that comes into place. So let's talk about Bob again. Bob spends his week during research crafting a beautifully designed speech that on the day he gets in front of classes messes up a little bit because of nerves. Ask yourself about your personality type. I've got to do everything right and to a dot and to a T. Problem with these types of students, probably high achievers. Real world situation though has its own scenarios that you can't even plan for at times. But the student still informed their audience because he worked hard. Even though he had some nerves going on, but still was able to hit the goal. Does that make sense? Chris, on the other hand, does almost no preparation for a speech, but being charming and comfortable in front of a crowd, smiles a lot while providing virtually nothing of substance. The audience takeaway from Chris's speech is, I have no idea what he was talking about. And other feelings ranging from, he's good in front of an audience, I'll give him that, to, I don't trust him. So the moral here is that a well-prepared speech that is delivered poorly is still well-prepared speech, whereas a poorly written speech delivered superbly is still a poorly written speech. The commonality, I hope you see, is that the focus is on the content of the information. I'm here to listen to this speech and it to inform me and how it's going to inform me, not teacher. I'm talking about, I'm an audience member and I'm coming to be informed about said topic. Let's give an example. I come to, what is something that I think, I want to know how to be a better chaplain and use my religious program specialist assistant. That's what I come to hear. And that directly applies to me. If I, as a chaplain, go and this guy's up there, he's all smooth, he's cutting jokes, and it's a poorly written speech, I don't care how nice he is, and yeah, I got to laugh. I come there for the purpose of being informed about that topic, right? Let's give the other situation. The guy's extremely intelligent. He's sort of goofy, maybe even a little nerdy, but man, I can tell he did his work. He's a little nervous. He's sweating a little bit, but man, I could hear and see, and I was informed about things that's why I came to listen. I don't care about him so much as he gave me what I came to be there for. And so, as beginning when I talked about anxiety, what helps me become a more confident speaker is not just preparation, but focusing on the content of my speech. It is so important to me that my audience gets that content that I'm not worried about if I mess up. I'll just restate something if I feel like I messed up. I'm not focusing on if I really screw up. If I really screw up, People are like, what y'all laughing at? Oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize I wasn't even playing the PowerPoint at the time. We can fix those things. But if I'm really informing you, you'll even remember the mistakes. Unless it was extremely funny. Make sense? That is the emphasis of delivery. Focusing on that content of the information. Not that you get every little T that I went through, every little bit of my outline because I prepared for it. Delivery, great delivery, is being fluid enough to go off the script because you know you need to and you're prepared to. Did you hear that? To be able to be confident enough to go off the script. I'm looking right before my outline and I know I've got more time to expound on one more story because we've got 5 minutes. I've only gone 3.5, 4. I want to leave you with this. Before we conclude, I want to give you this story about one time when we did this. Because I know I have time. I've gone off my planned script. But I prepared. I'm so prepared I can do that. Now, what does that look like? I want you, when you prepare your outlines, not prepare for a 5-minute speech. I want you to prepare so that you know that information so well enough that you could probably go 10 or 15 minutes if asked. Because guess what? There are times when venues and people who are in charge may ask you to go longer. And if you're well experienced at it, you'll think, okay, I'll add some more stories in. I know that there's a part here I thought would have been a little bit more more specific and more hard to understand. I can expound on that moment that was hard to expand, and I'll open that up as opposed to, I'll save that for another day. You living and knowing your topic and breathing with it and not just taking it out on one date, but really knowing your topic that well will be a well of information you can draw from, and you can go off script if need to, because it's really not off script because you know and plan for the potentiality of I can go longer or that I can ask questions and be able to expound. Does that make sense? All right, so there's Chris and Bob. Now, we realize that delivery is what you are probably most concerned about when it comes to giving speeches, so this chapter is designed to help you achieve the best delivery possible and eliminate some of the nervousness that you might be feeling. All right, see if I can. Let's use this as a I'm going to go through these. This was the basic framework of my past textbook, actually. They would go into the different styles of public speaking, and they are impromptu, extemporaneous, manuscript, and I want you to see the benefits and the disadvantages. So instead of reading this, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss it because I want you to think critically about if I come up and give my speech with a manuscript, what would that look like and how would that end up? If I give my speech and I don't have a lot of time to deliver and prepare for it, if I don't have a lot of time to prepare for it, that is an impromptu speech. So this is real world scenario. Your boss says, I know we've got this meeting next week, and you've got a lot of things going on. You're not going to have a lot of time to prepare for this speech. But you've been working on this project for a long time. So you know the information, you've done the research. Now you don't have a whole lot of time to prepare. You know what the basic outline is, intro, body, conclusion, right? Or the 3 main things that I'm going to give my audience if I don't have a lot of time to prepare. I've got the basic skeleton. Then I got to build in creativity and more substance as needed, and I can even ask questions. But I don't want to sit there and just ask questions and not get any responses. Maybe I need to create some questions if I'm going to do that I may anticipate they didn't even think they needed to be asking. That's more substance, that's more creativity. Instead, anybody got any questions? And then you sit down. Oh dang, nobody asked any questions. You control the tone and the flow of all of that. Impromptu speaking doesn't mean there's no preparation. It just means you don't have as much. I gave you that at the beginning of the semester. That was your impromptu topic. You know, I helped you a little bit with anxiety, maybe gave you a little bit of pointers of basic structure so that you could feel that pressure. That pressure of that being called on, like let's say this, I surprised you right now. You got a speech by the end of this class. Everybody's going to give me a 30-second speech. Oh, snap. Nervousness kicks in. I'm not prepared. You got to be able to do that on the fly. As I mentioned to you earlier in the, if I have not, I'm going to say this again. I'd come in prepared for a 5-minute speech, and my commander would sit there and say, now you got 1 minute. We don't have time. Aye, sir. Bam. I flipped it on its head, got to the main point. So on the 3 things they need to remember, I'm basically just going over my outline. Right? That's going off script because I had to. So I should be able to flex. If it's impromptu and I don't have a lot of time, I should be able to go 10, 15, 30 minutes with the same speech. But I'm going to build my outline based off the time that's given on only what I need to focus on because I can't focus on it all. Impromptu speaking is the presentation of a short message without advanced preparation. Let's give you some good tips there. I'm going to get you to think about them. Take a moment to collect your thoughts. Thank the person for inviting you to speak. Do give your name. Still make it authentic and get them like you're having a conversation with someone. You don't want to fly through the information. You just get to the basics, right? Deliver your message, making your main point as briefly as you can while still covering it adequately, and pace your listeners can follow. Stay on track. If you can, use a structure, using numbers as possible. 2 main reasons, 3 parts of our plan. Thank the person again for the opportunity to speak, then stop talking. It's easy to ramble on and to go over that time. Think of it this way. If you don't have a lot of time to prepare, you want to begin, deliver, and end. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. All right? Don't go rambling on because you think you might want to, or you think you forgot something. You're never going to be able to tell them all that you would like to tell them. But that just destroys the conclusion. Make sense? Okay? That's what unprepared or nervous people or undisciplined people do, is they ramble on. A different style is manuscript speaking, the word-for-word iteration of a written message, as if you were writing an essay and you're going to come up and you're going to read that essay. It is done before. There have been great speeches done this way before. Jonathan Edwards' Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God is one that I can remember. I mean, it was a part of the Great Awakening. But his words were so articulate and so profound that it moved people. And he could speak in such a way and read in his manuscript in such a way, and in front of large audiences, you were focused more on in the imagination of your mind and in the words and the imagery than you were about his delivery. It's about the content of the information. But here's the problem. Your book goes into benefits and drawbacks. Without looking at the screen, what do you think are some drawbacks of delivering a speech with a manuscript? And let me pause for a second. Let's say you wrote your outline, and I told you I don't want you reading from your outline, but you've got a paragraph. You can read a paragraph or a quote. It'd be perfectly fine. But some of you tend to draw back to, I've got this long, I prepared this big old outline, and I'm going to want to read it. Mr. Paul said give phrases. It's a plan. But what are the drawbacks to having a large sentences or paragraphs or manuscript if you had to deliver that information? Yes, ma'am. You're not making eye contact. You're going to be focused on what material? Yeah.
I think you also can't really vary that. I mean, like, you can't really go upon it because it's kind of whatever you have.
Look at the screen we have. You see manuscript manuscript speaking pops out at you. You know what it's going to talk about because that's a title, right? But if you see those paragraphs, you have to read them in order to understand what that information is. If you write in long sentences as an outline, the same thing will occur and your eyes will be down. Now, I do know this. Some of you may have phrases because of nerves. You were looking down at something else because you didn't want to look at your audience. You may not have even realized that you were doing that. You were thinking in your mind, and therefore you weren't looking at your audience. You were looking in your mind about where you should go. You don't have to look at everybody in your audience at one. You can't see everybody at one time. You really, when you see an audience, you're looking at one person at a time. But you can see how I span across the whole audience. Some people, when they get nervous, they focus on someone they may know or they have a comfortable relationship with, and they're locked in on them, and they forget about people over here. Okay? Manuscript speaking has some drawbacks. I'm not saying there's not a time and place for it. In a library with a sweet lady that's reading to kids and showing them the pictures in the book, she's actually showing them that she has to look at the pictures and slow down and accentuate for them to be able to follow her. Because if she just read to them plainly, it would not be as dynamic, especially for our audience with kids. All right. Extemporaneous speaking is the presentation of a carefully planned and rehearsed speech. Notice, I didn't say memorized, that's the next type. Spoken in a conversational manner using brief notes, or like I said, a phrase. I think I don't want to kick a dead horse here, but I think y'all get this right. You understand the advantages of speaking in an extemporaneous manner. What would they be? Yep. Another way of describing it is it's like off the cuff, from the heart. I know my plan, following my plan, but my outline is not my speech. My speech is what I'm telling them.
You don't really have time to like whatever you're saying, it's not like pushing it.
There's time to still over prepare it, but you're not so tied to your preparation. You're more tied to the plan of what it is intended to be. Extemporaneous speaking is more what you intend to do with your audience. So, if I'm going to have a conversation with them, then that conversation may go to a different place even than I intended. Let me tell you this about speeches. Let me do it this way. Let me ask you a question. Who in the audience, when they gave their speech, it ended up a little different than what I thought it would be? Raise your hand. Most of you, yeah. And it's not going to come out exactly like you thought it would be unless you did a basic speech and you read the basic speech and went through the basic plan. That's going to end up with a basic kind of response. But extemporaneous speeches have the potential to go to a place you might not even have imagined. Then really start, but what about this? And interacting with questions, because now you're having a conversation with them. They feel comfortable that they can interact with you because you have not just the confidence, but they can sense the expertise, and they will want to know more because you've piqued their interest and you've created questions for them they didn't even know they had. And they want to know more. That only happens 9 times out of 10 with extemporaneous speeches. All right, so what do you think are some drawbacks to extemporaneous speeches? And again, this is the model, what I want you to do for the class, extemporaneous speaking. What are some drawbacks? Don't read the book. Well, you can look at it as a drawback, or you can look at it as if I prepare right, I'll know whether I'm prepared or not. Right? So it's a drawback. Let's say in that sense that if I get too distracted and I didn't prepare well enough, or something got in between my preparation time that really got me distracted, I might not be as sharp, possibly. So I need to be, right before my speech, I need to make sure everything is aligned like I planned for it to be and be well prepared. Yes, ma'am.
I was actually more nervous for the extemporaneous speech because I wasn't able to fall back on my manuscript.
Yep. Because the manuscript has everything, right? You know it's there. It's like a security blanket. You can't fall back on it if you have poorly written plan. When I wrote it, I remember I wrote this word, and then when you fall back on it, it's like, man, I forgot what that meant. So that means, what does that mean? I need to make sure if I do write a phrase, I won't ever have to question what it means. Also, do me a favor, get rid of any clutter in your outlines. Main point 1, you don't have to have those words in there. Introduction, you know it's going to be your introduction. Okay? Blow up the font, do whatever you got to do. Make it to help you be as a visual aid. All right? And you do need to rehearse for extemporaneous speeches even more so, because here's one of the drawbacks. There's the potentiality for it to go some place that you never thought it would be. Just like I said, that's a benefit. It could be a setback. What if I'm so comfortable and everything's going so good and somebody asks me a question that I wasn't prepared for? That could happen. You need to be, with experience, you'll know how to counter those things. Okay? You'll know how to, in basic, I want to say this. If someone ever asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, rephrase the question to them, acknowledge it, acknowledge the fact that you do not have an answer, and that you will follow up with them if you could get their contact information right afterwards. Make sense? Because some people don't plan for, what if I get asked a question about something? That happens. And that's okay. When I walk away from a speech, I want to know that I've informed them and hit that target, right? But if I walk away from that speech and they want to know more, I know that's been a successful speech. If they're asking good questions that I may not have the answers to, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That may be a good thing in that they're wanting to know more. All right, let's talk about memorized speaking. I don't want y'all to muddy the waters in regards to these. That's why they separate these types of speeches. Memorized speaking is the rote recitation of a written message that the speaker has committed to memory. I've had people recite entire passages, entire books of the Bible to me. A lot of y'all in America may not realize how sharp memorization can be because you've not applied yourselves in that way before. Okay? It's amazing what we can memorize. For a long time, before we had printing presses, we had people that were dedicated to memorizing long passages, word for word, verbatim. What do you think are some advantages to having a memorized speech? Yep.
You know what you're going to say.
Yeah, you have your outline, but you don't have it in front of you, and you know what you're going to say because it's memorized.
I guess it's like no questions, like time. Because you're going to make time.
Because it's
Set in stone.
yeah.
But you, like I said, like, you can't really like express your audience as much because you can't ask questions. You can't kind of expand on things if you're like, maybe they didn't get that.
Right.
You're very like set on what you're going to say.
Yep. And there are things that may call for you to memorize long portions of your speech. By the way, there are things that I do want to encourage you to memorize and say to your audience. Powerful quotes. If you have a poem and you can give it to your audience memorized by looking at them, oh my word, it takes a whole nother level when you do that. It takes on a new experience. If I have it for you, did I read for you that poem, If?
Yes.
Okay? Every time I've heard it memorized, or even when you see a video on the internet and it shows you the words, you're not thinking and hearing that person deliver it. You're experiencing what is being said. People cannot do that if you've only read it one time and you're delivering it and you're trying to read it for the second and third time. Does that make sense? Memorize, knowing where inflection goes, can be very powerful. I suggest you memorize your 5 main points for many different reasons. One reason being is if you lose your notes, I'm going to have it on my phone, batteries die. I'm going to have it on my on a piece of paper, those get lost. I remember typing up something in red ink because I wanted it to stand out, and it was by a campfire. I couldn't see the words at night. I could see the black words, couldn't see the red ones. But if you know your outline, you can say it directly to your audience and not read it to your audience. If you want something emphasized because you know it's important, you need to say it to their face, right? Here's the problem. Let me say this. Let me slide this down. This talks about using lectors, speaking outdoors, using microphone, audience size. We'll talk about that and then practice for a second, and then we'll move on. Here's the thing about this class and you getting to know me. I see myself as a pretty nice guy. I'm not going to, beat you over the head or embarrass you if you're not doing something right. I don't know that everybody is as passionate about me about getting things right. Some people may be so OCD, they just want to make an A and they're focused on the wrong thing. That's not what I'm talking about. That's a good thing to being prepared and even to being overdoing things. At least you'll be prepared. But I want you to, as I mentioned, it's not about a grade, to look at these speeches as an opportunity to really blow us away with something very, very simple. Something very, very simple can bring joy to our life, and it's no longer about a speech at that point. I know that you may feel, well, I'm sort of working on the basics of building a structure and doing some of these things for the first time, especially like with a Zoom speech, prepared speech. I want you to, if I can, remember in some of your notes I told you now I need you to build in creativity and substance. The way to do that is to throw caution to the wind. That's an old way of saying that to be creative, sometimes you've got to take risks. Be a little more daring. Find a way to deepen with yourself, to have the courage to say, I'm going to try something new because I think this can be really fun. But if you kill it with, all I got to do is get an A, or if you kill it with, I don't think I can be that way, or what if it fails, or what if I embarrass myself, then you're not going to allow creativity to flow. Creativity comes with a lot of experience and wisdom and just having fun and not caring if you mess up. They're going to know. There's times when people say, I'm going to try this, y'all. I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try this. And people are interested then just because, what do you mean? What are you talking about trying this? I played it over in my head again many, many times how I'm going to get that done. And 9 times out of 10, it has never failed me. And there's times where I thought when it didn't go over as well. You're going to have that with speeches. Let me say this for you about delivery. We're going to talk about practicing, rehearsing, and all that kind of stuff. You are going to have moments where you walk away from a speech and it just fell flat. You're going to walk away from some speeches and you're like, man, I put so much preparation into it. I didn't feel nervous. I thought I had plenty of time. I didn't procrastinate, and it just didn't go over as well as I thought it would. That's like a gut check, right? Man, I put all this work into it, and everybody's just like me. You cannot live and die and beat yourself up over it didn't go over like I planned it. Be thankful for the times when it goes well. I'm really thankful for the times when I know I'm always prepared, but man, I didn't feel like I was prepared as I'd like to have been, and things just seemed like it. I knew I would try, but it just seems like things just didn't fall together. I've walked away from some of those speeches and somebody come up to me and says, man, I've never heard it put that way before. Thank you. That is so cool. I was like, I'm thinking back in my mind, geez, I didn't feel like that way. You don't know how it's going to end up. So what I want to encourage you with is just put forth your best effort. Walk away saying, did I inform them? Did I hit my target? Or was I clear about my purpose? Check. Then you did what you were asked to do. Then you can put your head down at night that you did that very thing that you were asked to do. Make sense? All right. Now, talking about practicing your delivery, practicing your speech. Before this, I mentioned about a lectern. These can be very powerful. This lectern here, sort of put it in my recording. It's a podium, whatever you want to call it. Do not take these for granted. First of all, you can move where you want. but there are things that come with speeches that can be great devices for speaking. If I have a microphone as a device, I can focus on the information. It almost sounds like I've got this resonating voice. So people know how to play with microphones. If you have more of a room size, if the room is bigger than a regular room, you'll need a microphone. Do not be that person. I don't need a microphone. I got a loud voice. Do not do that, please. I see that so often. I'm going to go without a microphone. If it's in a room this size, you're probably fine. They probably would not even have a microphone out to begin with. But don't do that tech person a discredit, then put all that preparation in and you not even pick up the microphone. That's not the only reason. You want to be able to soften your voice and project your voice. And with a microphone, you can do both. If you have no microphone, you got to project the whole time like this so everybody can hear you, and it's just going to be a different type of delivery. And it's going to be like, it's a little more intense the whole time. Make sense? Use the microphone, and when you do, you want to put your mouth right up to it as if you're kissing it. Singers know that. The music, the band will drown them out because they're not directly speaking into the microphone. Okay? If you're singing, or if you have ambient background noise. Lecterns. By the way, this one has a thing where you can slide up and down. If you put all your weight on this, you can if you want to show emphasis, but the problem is it will slide down and give out from under you. I sort of intentionally sometimes do not tighten it up in case I have a student just gets a little too lazy and starts leaning the whole time. It's going to give way out from under you. But why do I mention lecterns? I'll give you an example from the Christian world. When there's a Bible and when preachers in seminaries are taught that the emphasis is on the information, remember, and that Bible is there. And if you get away from that lectern, you're getting away from Scripture for too long. Now, I can have a personal story, but in Christianity, it should never be about me. That's the emphasis. And this will correlate outside of Christianity, outside of religion. If there is a sense to where the lectern means that this is a sense of authority or a seat of authority, then use that. You are given the podium. It's sort of like the mic. You are given the mic, and understand that that's a seat of honor. It's a seat of authority, and realize that you can step away from it. But when I get away from it and I get about the me, and I get away about what they've asked me to do because I want to, then have a good reason. It can be, I want to tell you a funny story. You can step to the side. But I've used it to let them know I'm getting away from the moment. It's a visual signal that they know I'm changing my pace because of location. That's a part of delivery. None of the things you can do, this could be home base. First, let's talk about, and now I'm going to step over to here. I'm still by the lecture and I can see my notes. Now let's change to our second topic. Another thing that I want you to understand is, now I'm over here and they know I'm talking in a different subject. It's almost like if you're writing an essay and if you just have one long block paragraph, they don't know when you're going to change subjects. That's why you indent and create new paragraphs or create a space. By me moving over here, I'm letting you know we're talking about something else. And back to the center, I'm coming back, bringing in for a landing. I'm back closer to the end. It's called signposting. It's signaling. That's a part of delivery. Lecterns can be used and remind you of that very thing. You may not, and also have it remind you, I don't want to stay directly behind it the whole time. As I've mentioned to you, I think I have, but we'll mention this again. If I'm standing here, I'm not speaking down into the lectern. My voice is projected here. If I stay just here, everybody's locked into me, and they're not moving their necks. And what's going to happen if I'm not moving? They're going to start doing this. But if I step towards you real quick, this is a thing I used to learn when I taught high school. If I felt like someone was falling asleep, what I would do is I would actually keep talking, and I would, really emphasize the point, but I'd get close to that person who's falling asleep without having to put my hand on them or bring them attention, but they hear me getting closer. It's warm in here, right? I understand that. Acknowledging the atmosphere. It is a little warm in here. Acknowledging the time of the day. This little side notes I just threw in there. that can help people make them sleepy. But if I'm moving and if I don't stay in one place, I can be less dynamic in my delivery. All right. Let's talk a minute. Y'all got any questions for a moment? I'm just going to stop and say, hey, what about this? You mentioned this earlier. We can jump backwards if we need to. We're talking about preparation for a moment. Yes, ma'am.
You said it was signposting, right?
Yep. The book may call it something different, but signposting is a way. What I'll do, too, in regards to delivery, I actually do this when we get into your persuasive speaking. It's hard to do this on the screen, by the way, especially when we're doing our online speech next. So you can't see it here, but I see the screen, and I can use this as a visual. So let's say you're way over here on this party line. Let's say you're Democrats over here, Republicans over here. You can do that, but remember, I'm watching this screen, and I know I can't move out the screen, or the audience may not understand my visual. But if I'm in a room with no fixed Facebook Live or something like this, let me give you an example. Let's say, how many people, if I were to go skydiving, would want to go today? Here's my money. Shut up. Let's do it. You heard it's only $50. It's normally like $150. Who would do it? Who would be over here with me? Way over here. I'm like, let's do it. Do I have anybody's maybe? Any maybes? Oh, I got a maybe. Okay. All right. Let's go back over here. I don't care how much freaking money you offer me. I ain't going skydiving. I don't care. Out of a perfectly good airplane, I ain't jumping out. Who's over here? Raise your hand. All right. Notice I'm interacting with my audience. All right. And I see some of your faces, your eyeballs are interacting, your heads are turning, but I'm using my podium as a center point. And when we get into persuasive speaking, how can I get these people who would never do it over to there? And what I teach you is baby steps. I still ain't jumping out no plane, but at least get you to consider what I have to say. Okay? That doesn't mean if my goal is to persuade them to jump out of a perfect good airplane, my goal is not to get them to do it. My goal is to get them to consider what it would be like. That's one step closer than they were. I'm never going to consider it. At least here in my speech, you're going to consider it. In a sense, imagine us standing there right on the edge. I get up on the table. That'd be cool if the table wouldn't break. And then there's nothing below. You're going to jump out. No worries. There's a guy on the back of you. He's going to push you out because you're strapped to him. You don't have to worry about making that first step. Anyway, I thought it'd be funny to see your faces a little bit. So please move the lectern. Use the room in your delivery. Imagine when you're preparing for your speech what you might can incorporate in the room. We used to have a flag up there before they updated the rooms. Colors, smells. If be careful with bringing perfumes because sometimes that can give people headaches. But food and different things have these powerful smells that aid in delivery. And when you're going to give something like gifts, it could be and I've mentioned to you in regards to ingredients or how-to directions. That's a gift. Or giving us the cake or giving us the cookies or giving us the slime or whatever. Maximize the potential and power of that gift, of timing. When you're prepared for your speech, everything is about timing. Do I give it to them at the beginning, the middle, the end, or as an afterthought, maybe if they want some? Don't do yourself a disservice. The curiosity is going to be there. What is it that I get? Free. This is going to, at least going to read it, or at least going to pick it up, at least going to look at it once. Maximize the timing of when you do that very thing. And remember, you can put it anywhere in your speech. You have the power of when you prepare to play with the idea of when you're going to do that very thing. Or when you're going to move from the very place that you're at. Or how you're going to use different visual aids. Timing of slides. Timing of when you're going to have that person step out from behind the screen. Let's imagine we're talking about, I want you to be creative, right? And then the next chapter actually gets into presentation aids. And so I'm giving you some of them already, sort of dual tasking here for you. One presentation you had, if I'm preparing and I'm going to give a speech on why you should adopt. This is a classic. This isn't anything. Remember I told you, good speakers know how to steal information. This is one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. I've seen it done twice, and it still moved me both times. One of the most powerful things I had, and I know they were going to do it. One student who I taught during high school, she was giving a speech on why you should adopt. Okay? Great persuasive topic. It's a classic even, I would even say. And they were required to have a concrete object. And and the timing was so perfect. I'm going to give you two examples. One example, it was two different speeches. One is in order to show you the best reason of why you should adopt is I want to introduce you to my new brother. He come out from behind the stage because at the time we had it down there at the auditorium. I didn't know the kid was back there. I was like, good night. I was like, holy cow. It was personal, relevant. Obviously, they were an expert at it because they've had a new adopted brother. Timing, right? Imagine yourself getting excited about how you can reveal the information. 5 different ways. A reveal in your introduction. It doesn't have to be a powerful reveal. It just could be, hey, let me show you something. Or it can be, I'm going to pull it behind a piece of cloth and just looking the whole time. What's under that cloth? Oh, it moved. What's going on? Right? Or what's that smell? Delivery, preparation. That's what I do in preparation. I have time, so I'm not procrastinating. Now, there's one thing procrastinating about the outlines, another thing procrastinating in regards to creativity. If you get your topic and your purpose and all things early, you can allow that to excite you and come up with ideas. Write those down. Let them wake you up at night, but write it down or you forget it. The other example when it comes to adoption, this one young lady, I taught her during high school, and she's giving a speech on why you should adopt. This is one that was actually a high school student. And she revealed information at near the end, in the third point, was an application phase, right, of why they should consider adopting, and she gave a story. Creativity, right, substance, and she gave a personal story, and I think she might even bookend it. Let me tell you about bookends. You know what bookends do, right? You have, they hold everything up. Bookends can be decorative. Hold this side of the books up, hold this side of the books up on a shelf. We have the introduction, you can mention it, part of it up front, and then you come back to it at the end. That's called bookending. She mentioned that there was a lady who was a doctor. No, she was going to pass away, and her doctor ended up adopting the baby. It was really cool. And she I was like, man, that's a touching story. You don't ever hear many doctors doing that often. She says, remember when I mentioned to you earlier about the doctor that adopted that young baby? Well, I'm that child. I was like, what? I've known this girl my whole life. I knew her parents my whole life. I didn't know she was adopted. And it was revealing in timing and information. And it was a part of that delivery because she knew that if she just said it up front, it just would have lost the power of when that would have come. She could have said it up front, but you don't have to give everything up front. Maybe finish it and bring it back later in to tie everything together. You can tie everything together with a theme. It can be a baseball theme. It can be a math theme. There can be themes that can tie things together. You can bookend things together. But preparation is a lot more about allowing creativity. It's not about I've got the basic outline done, as much as it is I've given myself room for this to take its own life. Make sense? For a moment, let's look at the book. Practicing in Delivery. There's no foolproof recipe for good delivery. I do want to say this. When you practice your speech, rehearse it out loud in a couple of different ways. Rehearse your introduction out loud all the way through nonstop. How long did it take you? And then write that down. That should go in your pre-work outline. Did that sound like it had a hook and clear purpose? Did I tell that story? Was it well developed? I'm going to rehearse my conclusion in the same way. I want you to rehearse your speech all the way through nonstop without sitting there saying, oh, I want to write this down, I want to change this, I want to change this. Right? You want to know how it feels, how long the speech goes when you're doing that as well. Okay? What do you think are some other advantages, disadvantages? There are disadvantages to rehearsing. You tell me about some of your experiences. Notice how I'm interacting with my audience. What are some of the experiences you have had in rehearsing that you might think would be relevant to us understanding the importance or the mess-ups or what you learned from rehearsing? Yes?
I'm not sure if this fits I was rehearsing like in my car on the way to the speech.
Okay.
So my voice was like a little hoarse before I even started.
Okay. So it wasn't like a quarter horse, it was a little horse?
It was like this.
It's rather big. Yeah, sometimes rehearsing beforehand helps you recognize, hey man, I didn't realize, say you're in a room, they got you before they can pull you out, or somewhere, I didn't realize I got a little bit of laryngitis or a little bit of hoarseness in my voice because of the time of day, or I was, our voices can change like that. What else? Preparation, delivery.
I practiced standing up.
Yeah.
That helped.
Yep. Get the blood flowing. You know what it's going to feel like as you deliver it standing up. Because if you just rehearse, you can rehearse in your head, driving down the road in a car. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying you need to have a live, full, all the way through. What did it sound like? Is it okay to rehearse in front of somebody else? Please do that. I didn't understand what you said at this point. Did you know that it came across that way? I didn't get that joke. Or they may say, I really liked when you said that story. Rehearse in front of somebody. Don't feel like, well, they're going to be there for the speech and I don't want to. I'd rather have a guinea pig that can help me out and see something than them seeing it for the second time, especially if it's a very important speech. You realize you can over-rehearse? That's the exception. You can over-prepare speeches. Play too much with your outline. What I do is save versions of your outline, because sometimes in Microsoft Word you actually move them around too much. You remember how I tell you you should have a short outline and a detailed outline, and those should exactly match? Those 5 points should be the exact words that are in the main outline. Okay? This is a speaking outline. When you prepare and you look down that paper, it should correlate what I see in my eye should correlate directly to my audience, not what's next in my mind. You'll be able to see that. If you need to enhance your outline during your preparation, you'll notice some of those little things. Change it. Make your outline yours. There's no specific way your outline should look. There should be elements in your outline that should be there as just a good rule of practice. All right. I know that I get y'all to rehearse in front of the AI. How did that go? Tell me about. Did it have 3 people there? And
My computer kept turning off, like it would go to sleep.
yeah.
So then I had to start over.
Yep. Y'all know there's an app for Pitch Advantage. You can do it. You can use. And the thing is, I had trouble. This is the first semester using Pitch Advantage. I was like, I can do it better on my phone than I can on a computer. And so they're perfectly fine. I'm not going to know which way you use. But any things you learned from Pitch Advantage rehearsing in front of it? That they can see you? Yeah. This is getting close to Halloween. They're not scary or anything, are they? Kind of scary. Especially, there's been a lot of talk about AI, and I'm like, are they like in my computer? Just I didn't know they were there the whole time, right? No. Yeah, it's just a tool. Again, the grades you get in Pitch Advantage, even if you're on my online fully online class, I don't look at those. I want you to look at those and just see a progression of getting better. If it says you need to work better in your pitch or tone or any of those types of things, look that up. What does it mean? And maybe you won't put Bob and Chris to sleep. I don't know what their names are, but I think that's a different way to rehearse. You don't have to always rehearse in that fashion, but at least get one in for me so I know that you are rehearsing. All right. Now, let's talk a minute. I want to get to the next chapter that we mentioned. Get out of there. So this is chapter 11. It's chapter 9 on presentation aids, just so that we'll have some type of reference that we mentioned these in class. All right. I think these chapters are longer, but because they give you a lot of different pieces of information. It might be best, can y'all see this well, for me to just move this here, and we'll let you out right on time today and not go over. All right, so I'm in chapter 9 now on presentation aids in speaking. This is going to emphasize something that I want you to know. PowerPoints, visual aids, videos will not save a speech. I like to look at them as you want them to accent your speech well. I've never worn a dress before, but I do understand the concept that some shoes don't go with some dresses. They just don't match, right? They don't go together. Okay? Now, this mentions that David defines presentation aids as the resources beyond the speech itself, which tells us it's creativity that a speaker uses to enhance the message conveyed to the audience. If you have to describe something for a long time and you could have shown us a picture, why not just show us the picture? Right? There is something to that old adage that says a picture speaks 1,000 words. I want to give you an example of how a visual can aid in a presentation. One of the more memorable speeches I had in giving in the class that was given was a student that gave a speech on scalloping. What's the T-shirt that says when the suns are up, the butts are up, or something like that? You know, that's what does that mean? When you're scalloping, your butt's up in the air and you're going down to catch scallops. All right. Notice that there are some of you have no idea what a scallop looks like. If I tested you right now, I said it, scalloping. What does a scallop look like? Who in here, honestly, it's doing this no test, who does not know what a scallop looks like? All right, you get. See, you hadn't even asked the question, right? That shouldn't happen if I could just show them a freaking picture, right? I'm not trying to pick on anyone in particular back there, but if I said the word RPG, what's an if I'm talking about video games? Oh, it's a type of video game. I told him it was a type of video game. What is an RPG?
I thought it was a movie.
What was RPG? I'll let you give the honors. Yay! FPS.
First-person shooter.
All right? Don't assume with abbreviations or that you gave them the word scallop and that you go swimming and diving for them that they know what it is. That's a scallop. That is a picture of a scallop, and you catch them in the ground. You have these bags. See, it takes multiple images, and if I could just show them a picture, there's nothing wrong with you sitting there saying, "Hey, Mr. Paul, pull up Google Images for me and type in the word scalloping for me." There's nothing, that is, even if you didn't plan for it, he's like, "Man, I probably should." Just ask me while I'm sitting here by the computer. Sure, why not? Now, some images I will go ahead and say work better if you put them in a PowerPoint. By the way, the eyes on there's eyes on these scallops and they glow fluorescent blue, I think it is. You can almost see it in some of them. But it's just what happens is when the first time I went scalloping, you just see the water like this. But when you go underwater, especially if you ever have gone swimming in tropical waters before and seen tropical fish and all the colors, it's a whole new world. You know, the whole area, don't be cheesy, but you can be, and it'd be all right sometimes. But do you understand how visual aids can accent a speech? They can help you. Don't have too many of them. Does that make sense? I'm trying to test you to see. Oh, we got 3 more minutes. All right, now, let's see. Olfactory, or relating to the sense of smell is the word. Gustatory, or of relating to the sense of taste. It doesn't have to be in good taste. It can be a bad taste to get their attention. Boy, that's powerful. Smells are probably the most powerful in regards to just taking you somewhere else. Think about if your audience can relate. Prove it to improve the audience's understanding. Imagine trying to explain something this complex that's on the screen in regards to polar easterlies, westerlies, trade winds, all right? This is in regards to the Coriolis effect. In my mind, I'm thinking, what is the Coriolis effect? I don't ever seen that word before. I don't want to act like I know what it is and you don't. I'm going to assume, even if I got a bunch of experts in the room that are scientists, I'm going to say what Coriolis is in layman's terms or in simple terms. The speed of the curvature of the earth. I'm not going to say olfactory. If I do, I'm going to say, sense of smell. I'm going to give the poor man's version of the word. Do the work for your audience. Give them the simplified version, and they will appreciate it. And you've given the scientific version of it, and your more advanced people who can relate to that or benefit from it, or remind them of, oh, yeah. They'll appreciate that. Now, I don't want to just stay there. I'm going to give you one illustration before we close. Presentation aids. Presentation aid can be a story. It can be pictures. It can be diagrams, graphs, charts. There's a difference between a graph and a chart. Choose the right one. But I'm going to tell you this from experience. And this may be preference, but there's a lot of preachers out there that like using PowerPoints. I've gotten away from PowerPoints because the mind is a powerful, powerful thing. When I first heard of the Coriolis effect, the spinning of the earth, how it affects things, was I was in the military. And snipers or hunters who shoot at long distances have to calculate for the spin of the earth or they'll be off by 6 inches. They're shooting north to south and they want to be accurate. They have to have a mathematical equation to get them directly on the target. And the further out you are from the target, the more likely you could miss by a meter. You need to be exact. Be precise with your language and use it in simplified terms, or you're going to be off the mark. See the illustration I'm using? Because as the world turns and it spins, there's going to be a lot of distractions in the room, in the world, that's going to throw things off. But if you're precise and if you care in the sense of taking care, you help your audience see things that they've never seen before, they will get a whole new visual of something they've may seen before, but not from the perspective you've given it, and they will appreciate your speech. Make sense? All right, do email me. Do be selecting your topic informative for your next speech, and let it marinate in your mind, and don't just take it out on one date, and that be it. Make sense? Do you have a question? I'm going to encourage you to look at the syllabus. Not to be smart, but because I might be off. I'll be guessing at this point. I think it's the October 30th, if I had to guess. Yep. Because next week's October 23rd. It ain't next week. Yep. Thank you, guys. Again, if you got any questions about your rubric,